first off, in the West Division, Gonzaga versus whatever, Norfolk or Appalachian. You got to go Gonzaga. They're undefeated. Look at their team. I mean, they've not lost a single game. Their record versus top 25 is amazing. They're a lot of people's picks to go far, so I'm going Gonzaga. Next up, you got Oklahoma versus Missouri. I'm a Missouri boy. Missouri is very lukewarm this year. They're like hot and cold. I got to go Missouri just because I'm a Missouri boy. Creighton versus UCSB. I got to go Creighton because Creighton got my boy Mitch Ballack. He's from around here, and he's pretty good. And I know they're really inconsistent, but I just think they're going to have a good game. Virginia versus Ohio. Now, this is an interesting one. A lot of people have Virginia losing, and I am one of those people. I like Ohio's team. I think they got some dogs on the team. And I think Virginia, we saw them lose to a 16 seed a few years ago. I feel like they're going to lose to Ohio. USC versus Wichita State or Drake. I got to go USC. They got two really good players and the Mobley brothers, and I just think they're a better team. Kansas versus Eastern Washington. You got to go Kansas. Even though Kansas has been weird this year, they're still a great team. VCU versus Oregon. I'm going to go VCU just as I feel like they're two similar teams. Oregon's really good, but I think VCU can just beat them. Iowa versus Grand Canyon. You gotta go Iowa, just how great they've been. Then you got Gonzaga versus Missouri. I'm going to go Gonzaga just, even though Missouri's my team, you got to go Gonzaga in this. And Creighton versus Ohio. I'm going Ohio. Ohio is going to be the little sleeper this year that goes to the Sweet 16, maybe even the Elite 8. USC versus Kansas. I'm going to go Kansas, even though I think USC can easily win that game. VCU versus Iowa. You got to go Iowa. Gonzaga versus Ohio. I wish I could pick Ohio here, but I think Gonzaga is just too good. Kansas versus Iowa. No, Kansas could easily win this game, but I think Luka Garza is going to be on fire this tournament. I got to go Iowa. And Iowa versus Gonzaga. I got to go Gonzaga. And so right here in the other side of the bracket, the South, you got Baylor versus Hartford. Baylor's been great all year. You got to go. That's easy pick. North Carolina versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin, I think in their last 8 games, are 2-6. So you got to go North Carolina. They clearly have the edge here. They have the best coach. They got good recruiting class. They got experience. Villanova versus Winthrop. A lot of people have been picking Winthrop because Villanova just lost their best player. But I think Villanova is still the better team without their best player, so I'm going to go Villanova. And Purdue versus North Texas. I think Purdue's easily winning that game. Texas Tech versus Utah State. Now, this is going to be a really, really good matchup. As Texas Tech is a very fun team to watch. They got Mac McClung. They got a great coach. They actually lost in the last national championship to Virginia. And Utah State is also a really fun team to watch. They have a guy that's number 44 because he likes the Wendy's 4-for-4. So that's just a funny story. But I think this would be a really good game, but I do think Texas Tech is going to win. Colgate versus Arkansas. I've seen a lot of people picking Colgate, but Arkansas I think is just too good this year. Florida versus Virginia Tech. I think that Florida is going to win this. Florida's good. Virginia Tech's good. I just think Florida's going to win. Ohio State versus Oral Roberts. Ohio State easily. Baylor versus North Carolina. You got to give it to Baylor. I hate picking all the 1 seeds, but I just think that Baylor's better. Villanova versus Purdue. I think Villanova's going to have some momentum. I think Villanova's going to win. Texas Tech versus Arkansas. I love me some Texas Tech, so I'm going to go Texas Tech beating Arkansas. Florida versus Ohio State. I got to go Ohio State. Baylor versus Villanova. Now, this is where Villanova's best player is going to be missing is against this game right here, and I think Baylor's going to take it. Texas Tech versus Ohio State. I got Tech all the way. Tech is my team this year. Baylor versus Tech. Gosh, this is a tough matchup. I'm actually going to come back to this because I just got to see how the rest of the bracket fills out. All right, and we're in the East. We got Michigan versus Texas Southern or some weird school. You got to go Michigan. I mean, they've been great all year. LSU versus St. Bona. You got to go LSU. They've been really solid this whole year. Georgetown versus Colorado. Now, my basketball coach actually is a huge Colorado supporter, and for that reason alone, I'm going with Georgetown. Shout out Patrick Ewing. Florida State versus UNGC or UNCG. Florida State. I mean, I don't even know that other college. BYU versus UCLA or MSU. I got to go with MSU or UCLA over BYU. I mean, both those are blue blood programs, and I just think that BYU's not that great this year. Texas versus Abilene Christian. Texas all day. Maryland versus Connecticut. I used to be a huge fan of Uconn. I got to go Uconn. Alabama versus Iona. Got to go Alabama. Michigan versus LSU. No way Michigan loses that game. Florida State versus Georgetown. I got my Georgetown boys here making it to the Sweet 16. MSU versus or UCLA versus Texas. I got Texas. Alabama versus UConn. Got to go Alabama. Michigan versus Georgetown. That's a close game. I think Michigan's pulled out. Texas for Alabama. I think Texas is a better team. I also think Texas is better than Michigan. So that's who I got going to the Final Four from the East. Midwest. Illinois. They some killers this year. They got 2 All-Americans. Loyola, Chicago. You know I got to go with them. Shout out Sister Jean. Got to get the Chicago teams to play each other. Tennessee versus Oregon State. I'm going to go Oregon State even though they're god-awful. They just won their tournament. They have some momentum. And who even likes Tennessee? That's just a boring team. Oklahoma State versus Liberty. Got to go Oklahoma State. Cade Cunningham is legit. San Diego State versus Syracuse. I'm going to go Syracuse. I mean, they have the more experienced coach. And San Diego State has a great program, but I just think Cuse is going to win. Morehead State versus West Virginia. Oh, my gosh. This is the pick that I want to make as the huge upset. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to say Morehead State's going to beat West Virginia. But one of my favorite players of all time went to Morehead State. Shout out Ken Fareed. It's my guy. I got to go Morehead State, and I don't like West Virginia, you know. Clemson versus Rutgers. I've never heard of Clemson having a good basketball team, so we're going Rutgers. Houston versus Cleveland State. Easily Houston. You know, Illinois versus Loyola Chicago. The battle of Illinois. Got to go Illinois. As they're going to be the national champions, I think. Oregon State versus Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State all day. Golly. Syracuse versus Morehead State. I'm going to skip this real quick, come back to it. Houston versus Rutgers. Houston's going to take it. Now, Syracuse versus Morehead State is an interesting game because Syracuse obviously is a better team. But I'm just going to go Morehead State just for the culture. Morehead State all the way. Illinois versus Oklahoma State. Illinois is easily taking that. Houston versus Morehead. I think Houston would beat Morehead State. I think Illinois would beat Houston. So my Final Four, Gonzaga versus Texas. I don't think Gonzaga will lose to Texas, so I'm going to pick Gonzaga. Illinois versus Texas Tech. Yeah, we're going Texas Tech over Baylor. I'm going Illinois. And for my winner, I think it's impossible to go undefeated in any sport the whole season, so I'm going to take Illinois. And, I think the game is going to be a close game. I bet you Illinois wins by like 5 or 6. And, yeah, that's my team.
All right, to start my bracket off in the West Division, I have to go with the 1-16 rule. I'm going with number 1 Gonzaga. Right here, I thought that Missouri's been a pretty good team all year. They just have lost a couple games down the stretch. So right here, I think they're going to win against Oklahoma. Right here, this Creighton UCSB game. I've heard some people talking about UCSB, but I have to go Creighton right here. This Virginia-Ohio matchup. A lot of people are on this Ohio train. Right here, I'm going Virginia. All my other brackets, I've taken Ohio, but I have to go Virginia right here. USC over Wichita or Drake. I really think just USC has a better team. Kansas, they've been really good this year, but, as always, they're probably going to choke later on in the bracket. Right here, Oregon versus VCU. Oregon's been a decent team. VCU's always had a decent program. 2 similar teams right here. I'm just going to go with Oregon, be safe. And then you just got to take Iowa right there. Going back up, Gonzaga versus Missouri. I got to take Gonzaga right there. Missouri just isn't. They don't have the firepower. Right here, we got Creighton versus Virginia. Right here, I'm going to go Creighton. Creighton's going to keep on rolling. USC versus Kansas. Now, Kansas usually always loses in the Elite 8 or Sweet 16. So I'm going to make them advance right here to the Sweet 16. They've got a decent team. Now, Iowa, they've had some good teams in the past. I mean, under this coach, they've never made it out of the round of 32. So Right here, Luka Garza, I think it's just his year. I'm going to take Iowa right here. Gonzaga versus Creighton. Obviously, Gonzaga has just a great team this year. I'm taking them over Creighton. I don't see Creighton taking them down. Iowa versus Kansas. Now, I feel like this could really go either way. A lot of people have said Kansas. A lot of people said Iowa. In my opinion, Iowa's got the better team, so I'm just going to take Iowa right there. Now, to go on to the Final Four, I do not think Gonzaga is going to pull it off. I don't think they're going to make it all that way. They usually end up, undefeated teams that are number one seeds, they don't always just make it to the Final Four automatically. So I'm going to take Iowa right here. Luka Garza is just a beast. Going to the south side of the bracket, you got to do the 116 rule, and you're going to take Baylor right here. Now, North Carolina versus Wisconsin. This could really go either way. I'm going to go North Carolina. Villanova versus Winthrop. A lot of people have been talking about Winthrop, but I'm just not falling for it right there. I'm going Villanova. They've been a good program. Purdue versus North Texas. I'm taking Purdue right there. They're just a better team. Now, Texas Tech versus Utah State. Just like Max said, this is going to be a good game. Texas Tech has some electric players, so I'm going to go Texas Tech right here. I like Texas Tech. Now, Arkansas versus Colgate. A lot of people have been talking about Colgate, but I just don't know. Arkansas and Colgate are similar teams. They like to run and gun. I'm just going to go Arkansas. They have just better athletes. Colgate isn't really known for, having good athletics. Florida versus Virginia Tech. Right here, I've liked Florida all year. They've been a pretty good team. I'm gonna go with Florida. And then Ohio State versus Oral Roberts. What team named Oral is gonna win that? Now Baylor versus North Carolina. North Carolina, they haven't been the best team this year. Got to go with Baylor right there. I don't like taking number one picks all that often, number one seed picks, but I have to go with Baylor right there. Now Villanova versus Purdue. Purdue has been very, very underrated this year, so I'm gonna take Purdue over Villanova. Texas Tech versus Arkansas. Now, I'm on that Texas Tech hype train ever since Mac McClung transferred. I love me some Mac McClung, so I'm gonna go Texas Tech. Right here, I got Ohio State over Florida. They just aren't a good matchup right there. Now, Baylor versus Purdue. I'm taking Baylor. You just can't bet much against the stronger seed. And I also have Texas Tech and Baylor matching up in the Elite Eight. Right here, I don't know, man. I don't think Texas Tech will pull it off. They don't have the depth that Baylor does. Baylor has a lot of depth. They've had problems with COVID. A lot of things might have changed from, back when they were rolling to now. But I'm going to have to go Baylor right here. Now we're headed down. We're going to go to the east side of the bracket. Right here we got to take the 116 rule. We got to take Michigan right there. Right here, LSU versus St. Bonaventure. I don't even know much about either of these teams. I'm just going to go with LSU right here. Now, Colorado versus Georgetown. Colorado has been one of the most efficient teams in college basketball, and Georgetown, they just aren't as strong as they usually are, so I got to go Colorado right here. They've been a really good team. Florida State versus whatever college this is, I'm taking Florida State. BYU versus what could be UCLA or Michigan State. I'm not falling for that hype. I'm going BYU. They've been really good down the stretch. Texas versus Albany Christian. I'm going Texas. Texas is a really good program this year. Uconn versus Maryland. Now, Maryland, they've been a decent team this year. Maryland has won against some good teams, but I got to take UConn. I like UConn. And then Alabama versus Iona. I got to take Alabama right there. Michigan versus LSU. I think Michigan takes that dub. Hopefully, Isaiah Livers can be back. You know, Michigan's been banged up. They've had some COVID-related issues. But, you know, hopefully he can get healthy and help Michigan take that dub. Right here, I got Colorado versus Florida State. Florida State's really strong this year, especially down low. I got to go Florida State. BYU versus Texas. Texas has a very good program this year. I got to go there. And then I got Alabama going against Connecticut. Alabama's going to take that dub. Now we got Michigan versus Florida State. I'm going to take Michigan once again. They've been really strong all year. You know, they got Hunter Dickinson, a big guy down below. He can match up with Florida State's big guys. Right here, I actually have Alabama taking it over Texas. A lot of people think Texas is going to go to the Elite Eight, but I really believe in Alabama. They're a really electric team. But Alabama versus Michigan, I got to take Michigan. Now moving on to the Midwest region. Got to go Illinois versus number 16 Drexel. Right here, Loyola Chicago versus Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has had a big momentum boost, so I got to go Georgia Tech. They're just on fire. Loyola Chicago obviously has had some past NCAA miracles and Cinderella stories, but, you know, I got to go Georgia Tech right here. Oregon State versus Tennessee. I don't know why, but people are falling for this Oregon State stuff. I got to go Tennessee. They're just a way better program this year. And Oklahoma State with Cade Cunningham. He will be really good, I feel like, in this tournament, hopefully. So I'm going to take Oklahoma State right there. San Diego State versus Syracuse. This is a game that everybody, like, I haven't seen anybody take San Diego State. So I'm going to have to go San Diego State. When everybody puts their back on the 11th seed, it doesn't turn out too well. So I got to go to San Diego State. They really aren't that bad of a team this year. Right here, I got to go West Virginia. I don't think Morehead State will pull it off. Hey, man, Morehead State, they're a really slow-paced team, and I don't feel like that will work so well in the bracket this year. I just don't think they'll pull that one off. Right here, Clemson versus Rutgers. I don't know much about either of these two. I just have a feeling Clemson is just not that good at basketball, and they've never been good at basketball, so I'm going to take Rutgers right here. Just old reliable. And then number 2, Houston over Cleveland State. Got to take that. Going back up, Illinois versus Georgia Tech. Even though Georgia Tech has been on fire, you know, it might be a really close game, but Illinois pull out. I mean, I watch all the Michigan games, and when I saw Michigan play against Illinois without AO, and they just shut down. I mean, their defense is just shut down. We got Tennessee versus Oklahoma State. I gotta take a look at Oklahoma State right here. Cade Cunningham, he's a beast. I mean, Tennessee isn't too good of a program. They're a good program, but they're not that great. I don't think anybody will match up with Cade Cunningham. San Diego State versus West Virginia. I got San Diego State over West Virginia, man. Yeah, I mean, people have San Diego State losing to Syracuse. They're actually a pretty good program, and I feel like they will take the upper hand against West Virginia. All right, number 2, Houston versus Rutgers. I got to take Houston. Houston's been strong all year, and, I mean, they have some athletes, man. They've got some pretty athletic dudes, big guys. I got to take Houston right there. Now, Illinois versus Oklahoma State. This will be interesting. This game really, it depends on how good Cade Cunningham will play. Like, if he turns into that beast and, like, averages 30 a game, they might have a pretty good chance on taking on Illinois. But just to be safe, I'm taking Illinois right here. Gotta just go with that strong 1 seed. Now, San Diego State versus Houston. I don't know why, but I do like San Diego State this year. They have some pretty good shooters in the perimeter. I mean, Houston's obviously really athletic, but will they be able... It determines on will they be able to score efficiently. And I just think San Diego State, they're just more efficient. So I got to take them right there. Illinois versus San Diego State. Obviously, you just got to take Illinois right here. Illinois might get knocked out early, might get surprised by somebody like Georgia Tech or Oklahoma State, but I got to take Illinois right here. And then our final four, Michigan versus Iowa. On the earlier matchup in the year, Michigan won, and it was, Hunter Dickinson, Michigan's defense shut down Luka Garza, and if they can do that again, they will win, and I'm taking Michigan to the championship. Baylor versus Illinois. Right here, Baylor hasn't really proven like too much, so I'm gonna take Illinois right here. They're a really good team. And then the matchup, Illinois versus Michigan, I'm gonna take Michigan as my championship team.
So now it's time for my bracket. Now, I don't know much about basketball like the other guys, so we're just gonna go off of what I've learned and seeds. So first of all, we're going to go Gonzaga, number 1. Always got to pick the number 1 seed. We're actually going to go over here to the south and pick Baylor as well. This one, I'm going to be biased. I'm going to go Missouri. I am a Missouri fan. And next we got Creighton versus USCB. I don't know. Record versus top 25, 3-2, 0-0. I think I'm going to go Creighton just because they have more of a record against top 25. Virginia versus Ohio. We're going to go Virginia. WICH versus DRK. I'm going to go USC. Kansas versus Washington. I'm going to be very, very biased here. I'm going East Washington. Not a Kansas fan whatsoever, so I'm being very biased when I do those. Oregon versus VCU. I'm going Oregon. I don't know. Looking at a few things, I think I'm gonna take VCU over Oregon. I think that could be an upset. Iowa, number 2 seed. Gonna go with Iowa again. Unfortunately, Gonzaga's gonna whoop Missouri. Sorry, Missouri fans. Virginia versus UCB. I can't pronounce that. We're going to go... I'm going to go UCSB just because it looks like their stats are a bit better than what Virginia's is. And, yeah, I'm just going to go stat-wise. I'm going with UCSB, or however it's pronounced. USC versus East Washington. I'm going USC. Iowa is dominant, and Gonzaga. Now, this is a tough one. Gonzaga versus Iowa. Obviously, Gonzaga's undefeated. Stats look better for Gonzaga. I think that's what I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go Gonzaga just because their stats look a lot better than what Iowa's does. So obviously we've done the Baylor Hartford, North Carolina versus Wisconsin. Gonna take a quick look at their stats. UNC has the better stats, so that's who I'm gonna go with. Villanova versus Winthrop. I heard that one of their star players is out, and they actually won recently, so they're gonna carry that momentum quite a bit. Purdue versus North Texas. Record-wise, Purdue looks better. Stat-wise, Purdue is slightly better. I think I'm gonna go Purdue, just based off of the strength of schedule too. I'm gonna go Purdue based off of that. Texas Tech versus Utah State. A lot of people are picking Texas Tech, and I don't. The record does look better on Texas Tech's side of things, so I'm going to go with that. Stats look better on Utah, but the record looks better. Colgate versus Arkansas. I don't know much about these two teams. Their stats are pretty similar. I'm gonna go Arkansas, and that's just based off of their record versus the top 25. That's just gonna be it. Florida versus Virginia Tech. Again, I'm going to take a look at the stats. Ooh. This is a close one. This is a very, I don't know. This is a very good one. I think I'm going to go Virginia Tech over Florida just based off of record and points per game. And some stats. They're too close, and this is really just decided by their record. I'm going to go Virginia Tech. Ohio State versus Oral Roberts. Ohio State leads everything besides points per game. I'm gonna go Ohio State on this one. Baylor versus North Carolina. I'm gonna go with the 1 seed. Seems a bit obvious. Villanova versus Purdue. I think I'm gonna go Purdue here, just based off some of their stats, their defense, and some of the others. You know, I'm gonna go Purdue because they've played more top 25. They've played at least 10 top 25 teams, while Villanova's only played like 4. I'm gonna go Purdue. I'm gonna skip that next one real quick. Virginia Tech versus Ohio State. Obviously, it favors Ohio State, and I think I'm gonna pick that favor. I think I'm gonna pick the favor of Ohio State. Texas Tech versus Arkansas. It favors Arkansas. So I think I'm gonna pick Arkansas just by the favor of it. So then I'll leave Purdue versus Baylor. I'm going Baylor full way on this one. And this leaves Arkansas versus Ohio State. And Ohio State seems, on stat-wise, seems to be the better pick. And so that's who I'm going to go with. Then Baylor versus Ohio State. Again, this is a mostly dominated Baylor game. I'm picking Baylor on this one. All right, then we get to the East. Actually, you know what? Let's do the Midwest next. So we got Illinois versus Drexel. This one's a no-brainer. I'm going with Illinois. This one is also another no-brainer in the East. I'm going Michigan. Loyola Chicago versus Georgia Tech. I'm not quite sure if it's Georgia Tech stats. However, on the 9th seed side, so we're going to go with them. But we're going to quickly go to this game. See, Illinois dominates. So I'm going to go Illinois right there real quick. Tennessee versus Oregon State. Tennessee's favored. They have more wins against top 25 than what Oregon State does. Points, yeah, this is a heavily dominated. Tennessee's definitely going to dominate against Oregon State, I feel like. Liberty versus Oklahoma State. Stats say Oklahoma, and yeah, I'm gonna go Oklahoma too, because the record versus the top 25. That's a big tiebreaker right there. San Diego State versus Syracuse. Stats say San Diego. I have a gut feeling of Syracuse, so I'm gonna go Syracuse. West Virginia versus Morehead State. I mean, I feel like this is going to be another upset. Sorry, West Virginia fans, but we're going Morehead. Clemson versus Rutgers. Stats favor Syracuse. So I'm going to pick Syracuse. Not Syracuse, but Clemson. Clemson definitely. And Houston versus Cleveland State, maybe? I'm not quite sure. Oh, and it's a heavy thing for Houston. So we're just going to go straight Houston. All right. So now we got Tennessee versus Oklahoma State. Top 25 is the deal breaker right there, along with points per game. So we're going Oklahoma State versus Illinois. Then Syracuse versus Morehead. I don't even want to look at this matchup. It's going to be Syracuse. Yeah, Syracuse all the way. Then we got Clemson versus Houston. I'm picking Houston straight up. I mean, points per game and opponents' points per game. That's better than Clemson. So we're going that. All right, then we're going to go Illinois versus Oklahoma State. It's probably going to be a 1 seed. Yeah, it's 1 seed heavy. I feel like this is going to be a battle of the 1 seeds here in the Final Four. Syracuse versus Houston. Now this, I'm going Houston versus Illinois. I'm going to pick Houston on that one. And then, Points per game is 81. This is a tough one for me. I think it comes down to record versus top 25, which Illinois would have the win in. I have a gut feeling about Houston. I don't know. My gut feeling is Houston. I'm going to pick Houston to upset Illinois. So I got LSU versus St. Bona. Points stats favor Illinois. I mean, not Illinois, but LSU, so we're picking them. This one, I'm going to quickly go over here. This one is actually kind of a tough one. I think the points per game is really going to favor LSU, and I'm actually going to pick an upset over Michigan right here. Colorado versus Georgetown. Colorado. Just looking at the stats, my gut feeling goes Colorado. Florida State versus UNCG. Florida State. Florida State all the way. So we're going to drop down here. Alabama versus Iona. Bama all the way. Straight up. No doubts in my mind about that one. Okay, so BYU versus MCU or UCLA. I think I'm gonna go BYU, but then I'm gonna have Texas winning against Alabama, and I'm gonna have Texas beating BYU. Just kind of seems. I mean, stats favor BYU, but there's a reason why Texas is ranked third, and I feel like Texas is gonna prove that. Excuse me, real quick. All right, so then we got Connecticut versus Maryland. I'm gonna go Maryland here. I'm gonna go with the upset Maryland, and I'm gonna go Bama versus Maryland. I'm gonna go Alabama on that one. That one seems to solidify a gut choice there. Then I'm gonna go Texas, Alabama. I'm gonna go Texas versus Alabama in the Sweet 16. Yeah. So then I have a feeling it's gonna be Florida State stat wise. Yeah. Although the defense I'm gonna go Florida State versus LSU, and I don't know. I just have a gut feeling about LSU for some odd reason. So we're gonna go LSU against Florida State, and this is gonna be heavily Texas. This is gonna be Texas. All right. So the final four, we got a 1 seed versus a 3 seed, and a 1 seed versus a 2 seed. Obviously, you don't go undefeated for a reason, but I feel like Gonzaga is going to get a bit too cocky, and Texas is going to show them, hey, why we're here in the Final Four. I'm actually going to pick Texas against Gonzaga. And then I got Baylor versus Houston. Honestly, this is going to be a battle of Texas. This is going to be the battle of just Texas, and we're going to go Houston. And who do I think is going to win? Well, I don't know. This favorably favors Houston. I think I'm gonna go Houston for the win. And yeah, that's my picks. Probably not as good as the rest of them, but just getting gut feelings, and yeah, it's gonna be a battle of Texas.
All right, hey guys, I'm Nate with THS Media, and today I'm going to be filling out a 2021 NCAA March Madness bracket. I'm going to start off with the round of 64, obviously, and I'm going to go through it pretty quickly since there's a lot of teams. First one off the bat, Gonzaga it's a 1 versus 16, so we can go in. Missouri over Oklahoma, Creighton, Virginia, USC, Kansas, Oregon, and Iowa. That's it for the West. We're going to head down to the East. Michigan, LSU, Colorado, Florida State, BYU, Texas, Connecticut, and Alabama. Now to the South. Baylor, Wisconsin, Villanova, Purdue, Texas Tech, Arkansas, Florida, and Ohio State. And now to the Midwest. Illinois, Loyola, Chicago, Tennessee, Oklahoma State, San Diego State. Ooh, it's not what I wanted to do. West Virginia, Clemson, or not Clemson, Rutgers, my bad, and Houston. So let's quickly recap that. No big, I guess, upsets here. Missouri over Oklahoma, that's a 9 over an 8 seed. That's the only one in that section. Nothing over here, I don't believe. I had Rutgers over Clemson. I think Rutgers will show up, but it's still not that big of an upset. And then, that was, and then Wisconsin over North Carolina. But that's about it for the round of 64. I'm going to go ahead and move it to the round of 32. Starting off in the West again, we're going to head over, and then Gonzaga over Missouri. Creighton over Virginia. Kansas over USC. And Iowa over Oregon. We'll go over to the East. Michigan over LSU. Colorado over Florida State. Texas over BYU. And Alabama over University of Connecticut. Now back up, we're going to head to the South. I'm going to go with Baylor over Wisconsin. Purdue over Villanova. Texas Tech over Arkansas. Ohio State over Florida. And then to the Midwest, Illinois over Loyola. Tennessee over Oklahoma State. West Virginia over San Diego State. And then Houston over Rutgers. And now I'm going to quickly recap that. So Michigan over LSU, nothing big there. I have Colorado over Florida State, which is a 5-4 upset, but still nothing big. Texas over BYU, and Alabama over Connecticut. Nothing much to see there. I had Houston over Rutgers, West Virginia over San Diego State. Nothing big there. Tennessee over Oklahoma State, which is a 5-4 upset, but still nothing out of the ordinary. And then Illinois over Loyola Chicago. Now to the South, I had Baylor over Wisconsin, and then Purdue over Villanova. Nothing out of the ordinary there. Ohio State over Florida, and Texas Tech over Arkansas. This one is a little more of an upset, a 6-3 upset, but I don't know. I feel Texas Tech there. And then to the West, I have Gonzaga over Missouri, Creighton over Virginia, which is a 5-4 upset, but still nothing big. Kansas over USC, and Iowa over Oregon. And with that, we are at the Sweet 16. So now I'm going to go over the games in a little more depth, but nothing out of the ordinary. First one up is Gonzaga and Creighton. As you can see here, Gonzaga is heavily favored. They were undefeated, and they're going to win the game. I don't think there's much question about it. Gonzaga over Creighton. KU and Iowa. This one, a little closer. Iowa's been stronger this season. KU's had their hiccups, and I think the same will apply in this game. So I'm going to have to pick Iowa over KU, which would leave us with the final matchup in there of Gonzaga and Iowa. As for the East, we have Michigan and Colorado. Let's take a look. Michigan, again, heavily favored. They're the 1 seed up against a 5 seed. I think they'll win. It isn't too much question about that one. And then Texas and Alabama. We'll take a look. Alabama, not quite as much favored, but they're still really strong this season, this year, and I'm going to side with them. As for the Midwest, we have Houston and West Virginia, excuse me. Houston's favored. They are the 2 to the 3 seed, and I think that's telling enough for this game. Tennessee and Illinois. Illinois is the 1 seed. Tennessee is the 5, and of course Illinois is favored heavily, and I have to side with that as well. So that leaves us with Illinois and Houston, and then for the East, Michigan and Alabama. As for the South, Baylor and Purdue. Baylor, the number 1 seed, and Purdue, the 4 seed. Baylor's heavily favored. They're ranked higher. They have a better record. They're going to win the game. As for Texas Tech and Ohio State, it's a little more complicated. Although Ohio State is favored highly, I think Texas Tech has the potential to win here. Now, I don't have an affinity for Texas Tech. Or a dislike for Ohio State, that being said, but, it is what it is. I'm going to side with Texas Tech, and that leaves us with Texas Tech and Baylor. So, Elite Eight, we have Gonzaga and Iowa, Baylor, Texas Tech, Michigan, Alabama, and Illinois and Houston. And for the first game, let's look at Gonzaga and Iowa. Gonzaga, again, heavily favored, ranked higher, have a better record, more points per game, less opponent points per game. They beat Iowa on every level, and they beat pretty much every team in the entire bracket on every level. I'm going to go with Gonzaga there. As for the South, Baylor and Texas Tech, it's Texas Tech by this time, I believe, has run their course, and Baylor's the Big Wolf's going to bite them down. Better net rank, better record, way more points per game. And although they gave up a little more points per game, still doing better there. So, with that being said, I'm going to side with Baylor. As for the East, Michigan and Alabama, I think I think Alabama will upset Michigan. Won't be that big of an upset, but still an upset nonetheless. Users pick, it's pretty close regardless, but they don't differ too terribly in stats when you look at it. There's only a 3-point difference in points per game, and there's only a 4-point difference in opponent points per game. And although they rank a little different, there's not much, and I think Alabama will pull out a win. That being said, I do not like Alabama. I'd like Michigan to win, even though I don't like Michigan either, but I think Alabama will pull out the win. As for Illinois and Houston, I think Houston will have run their course by now. Illinois will come out, and as you see, they're already heavily favored by users, and so I'd have to agree with that. And that leaves us with a Final Four of Gonzaga and Alabama, and Baylor and Illinois, a 1 seed, 2 seed, and 1 seed with a 1 seed. Let's look at these games. Gonzaga and Alabama. Gonzaga, I don't think there's any more to be said. Gonzaga's going to win this game. Now, as for Baylor and Illinois, this game's going to be a little more interesting. Very close in rank, very close in points per game, and opponent's points per game. And if we look at, last 10 games and, just general statistics, field goals, and three-pointers and whatnot, they're very similar. So it's going to be a close game. I think it'll come down to the wire, but I think Baylor will hold it out and take the win. And that leaves us with, of course, the final matchup of Gonzaga and Baylor. And let's take a look. The user's pick percentage says it there. I think from the start, I could have just picked Gonzaga all the way through this video, and I don't think many people would disagree with me. They're ranked higher, better record. They have more points per game. Although they give up a little more points per game, that's not saying that much. Team statistics, better in field goals. Not quite as much with the three-pointers, but better with the free throws, better at the line. And, Gonzaga. It's going to be Gonzaga. The undefeated throughout the season, and there's not much else to say about it. They're one of the best teams. They are the best team in the bracket, and they are one of the best teams to play the game in a fat minute. So with that, that's my pick. Gonzaga winning it all. Thank you.